My name is Ifekoya. I'm a London-based artist and I'm a studio holder here at Gasworks. The starting point for the show is what would it mean to start from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. Start from the place of having a lot rather than having a little, which is often the case. I think for artists who are black, who are people of colour, who are queer. For me, the show is really my blue sky thinking, and I wanted to make that happen. I wanted to create a space that, was transformed, and that when you as a viewer went in, you felt transformed. The title for the show is Ritual Without Belief, and the without is striked through. And that was very intentional for me. I guess I wanted to introduce this sort of double negative, the fact that actually there isn't really a ritual without some kind of belief. And I think, over the last year especially, I've tried to become really aware and really mindful of the rituals and habits that are part of my life, and think about the ones that I've either one inherited or two have become a kind of that I've taken on without really being mindful or tuned into what they mean. For example, thinking about the way that people are, I'm also, somebody who's on social media a lot, and like, what does that mean? And what did it mean that, often when I was waking up, the first thing I do is check my phone. So I've tried to think through some of my own habits, some of my own rituals, and think what are the ones that I actually want to be part of my life and what are the ones I'm willing to let go of. So I think the show is, the sound work especially, is really about thinking through these different ways that we have habits, that we have practices that inhabit our daily life, and actually what would it mean to cultivate beliefs or rituals in a way that could be a little bit more positive. I think I'm thinking about and the without is the inevitability of them always playing a part.
Thank you to all of those that have loved me the way that I deserve to be loved, even when I wasn't ready.
So the sound work I refer to as a black queer algorithm, and I think what I meant by that is that I'm somebody who's worked with sound for a number of years, in various ways, but it's always been part of my video, and then I guess in the last couple of years, or maybe 2-3 years, I've been working with sound on its own, and so I've been thinking like how to kind of make sense of all this material that I've been gathering over the years in terms of like my research, but also in terms of the work that I've been generating. And so I had to kind of create a sort of system in which to sort of process all the information, much like, an algorithm, like a computer. And so I created a system based on like 7 different sections. I'll kind of list a couple. I probably can't remember them all, but there's one called Revolutionary Mothering, which is thinking about mothering as, a kind of physical act, but also about community, and also about thinking like, how do we connect the dots? How do we be in dialogue with each other across generations? There's a section called The Party Is Over, so there is this sort of nod to nightlife. There's a section called My Body, My Desire, where I'm very much talking through some like intimate relationships, but also I guess some of my politics around like sexuality and like non-monogamy in particular. There's a section called The Weight of Blackness, where I think about like blackness as material, as it relates to a lot of the kind of the research, and but also kind of what it means to sort of live within that space as well, be that sort of navigating the trauma, but also the joy and the delight of it all. So polyvocality is a word that I feel doesn't have like a concrete meaning. I feel like it's a word that at the moment has a lot of like space within it, and so for me that feels really productive, actually, to try and like occupy a word that still feels like contingent, and like it could, like its meaning is still open and in flux, and I think for me it's thinking through what it means to occupy a subject position that is really in fact made of so many different subject positions. I think as a subject, as a black queer subject, I'm often asked to speak for when really all I'm doing is speaking with. And I think that's what I'm really trying to get at with this work. I think, it's been referred to as a self-portrait, but really what I'm doing is I'm embodying and channeling like a lot of different voices that influence me, that speak to me, that inspire me, that kind of keep me going, and sometimes they're literally in the work, I'll bring in other voices, but sometimes I'm embodying them and I'm channeling them. That could be my friends, it could be theorists I'm really interested in, and I also wanted to create a space without hierarchy. I wanted the theory to exist on the same plane as me talking about, sex and desire, or me talking about, music, or, my relationship with my mother, I wanted all these things to also exist on a level playing field. So as you enter the space, there's, multiple different, elements architecturally that you're sort of confronted with. There's the sort of the ocean floor, which kind of covers the whole length of the gallery and actually kind of goes up the wall, sort of halfway on the left and right all the way to the top on the right hand side. And I think, the ocean for me represents a space of real calm and tranquility. And I find it really grounding, and I find it really soothing. And so I wanted to sort of bring some of that energy into the space. But also I think there's something about the ocean as a site, again, of transformation, and also of, it somehow also sort of speaks to the endlessness of life and of death in a way, the sort of the cyclical nature of things, and it's endless, it kind of goes everywhere. We are water, the earth is so much water, and I know there's something for me that's really grounding in that's really affirming, and I wanted that to sort of root the show in some way. Something about that energy I just wanted to be really present. So the balloons, I think fundamentally for me, I wanted to create a sort of playful gesture. Directly there's this sort of nod to the Loft, the queer LGBT club night that started in New York. So I wanted to bring something of this energy, this reference to sort of the club, the nightlife space, without actually the space itself of the exhibition representing it or reproducing it. And I mean, the balloons themselves, I think, somehow speak to notions of time and decay, because they're going to deflate, they're going to fall, and for me they also are a kind of mechanism to encourage a return to the exhibition, because each time you experience the work it's going to be different, and I wanted to I guess also push against this idea of just creating a show that looked good and would be something that people would want to take pictures with on Instagram. I wanted to think about it as a place that you'd want to come back to and you'd want to kind of invest in. So with the inclusion of the Ajamu work, firstly I see it as a gift to myself, because it's work that has sort of stayed with me for a number of years, like since I was at university, but it's work that I've never been able to see in the flesh. And actually I think for the majority of us we haven't, because it hasn't been exhibited since it was made in 1990. So in a way I guess it's a political gesture. It's me thinking through the fact of, one, like, why am I only able to experience this work in a book or on a computer screen, and like what would it mean to bring it into a space? I wanted to think about that. I also wanted to really kind of call upon the work as a kind of an image that really for me speaks to strength, to power, but also to tenderness, to softness, and there's something about that dichotomy that really resonates for me.